Hi, Harper. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great. We can hear you too.
Okay, I will call the March 8th, 2023 meeting of the Manitou Springs Planning Commission to order. Call the roll. Commissioner Graybill,
Present.
Commissioner Wilson,
Present.
Commissioner Armstrong. Here. Commissioner Storm. Here. Commissioner Casey,
Present.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Okay. Next is approval of the minutes of the February 22nd meeting. I'll just start out by one correction. Commissioner Storm was excused. That may be my mistake. I thought she copied to both of you on that, but she probably just copied me on the email. Are there any other corrections or someone like to make a motion? I'll move that we approve the minutes of the February 2nd, 22nd meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
One
That's-
abstain.
Yeah, so it's 6 and one abstention. So next item is public comment on a portion of the meeting, and this is for public comments intended for items not already scheduled on the agenda to be discussed. And public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. And when you're called on, you'll be asked to state your full name and address for the record. It's not an interactive question and answer form, but rather a time for you to state your comments on a particular item or issue. So is there any public comment? Do we see anything online? I guess if we don't have any attendees.
No attendees online.
Okay. Okay, so we can move on to the next item, and I'll just describe the process we followed during the meeting. The chair calls an item for consideration. Planning staff will describe the applicant's request and provide analysis and findings based on the applicant's application. Following that, applicant will have an opportunity to state their case and provide any additional information they wish to provide. And commissioners may ask questions of staff or the applicant at this time. After the commission is finished with their questions, the hearing will be open for public comment from those in attendance. And at that point, you'll be able to state your thoughts regarding the item under consideration. After all public comment has been heard, the chair closes the public comment portion of the hearing and will deliberate and act on the item, voting to support or deny the item or possibly table it if appropriate. So with that, are there any conflicts or ex parte contact? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. The first item, new business, is rezone 2301, rezoning 121 Ruxton Avenue from general residential to downtown. Cassandra Bresnahan, owner, and minor development 2301, same address and same applicant.
Thank you. The applicant is seeking to rezone from general residential zone district to the downtown zone district in order to facilitate the mix of uses that have been historically present on the site. The building was built in 1911 and has historically been used as with 2 commercial units and 2 residential units. The staff also recommended that the applicant apply for a minor development plan to officially recognize those previous uses and establish those as a baseline for uses on the parcel. Previously, the owner of the building and tenants had been submitting for conditional use permits to allow various uses at this location. However, with the new land use and development code, that no longer is a valid option moving forward. And so staff recommended this course of action to really correct the zoning to accurately reflect the uses that have been present on the site since it was built in 1911. The site here, you can see there's kind of a blue balloon in the middle of the site or in the middle of the screen. That is the property in question, and it is zoned general residential. Across the street, the purple zone district is downtown zone district. So this parcel is adjacent to existing downtown zoning, which staff feels is appropriate to allow the mix of uses, which again are residential and commercial. The future land use map indicates that this parcel is intended to remain as a central neighborhood designation. However, again, we feel that this is not an accurate reflection of how the property has historically been used and is more reflecting what the existing zoning is versus what the actual use of this property has been. Here's just a photo. So you are familiar with the structure in question. There are no physical changes proposed to the structure, as well as no real changes in use. The two upper level units will continue to be residential in nature, which is important as the property is in the 100-year flood zone. So those residential units would not be permitted on the ground floor, but they are permitted on the second floor. The two ground floor units would be commercial, as has been the practice. Staff recommends, excuse me, you'll have to forgive the typo on this. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval to City Council for these two applications. The rezoning from general residential to downtown zone district and the minor development plan to permit commercial and residential uses on the site. And this concludes my presentation.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, would the applicant like to step to the table there and state your name and address for the record? And you have to get that real close, almost kiss the mic and turn it on. Yeah, right in the middle, there's a little voice.
It's the speaker. Okay, got it.
So yeah,
My name,
Yes.
Cassandra Bresnahan, and I live at 80 Waltham Avenue, Manitou Springs.
okay, great. And you have the floor. Any thoughts or anything you'd like to say or describe?
I think, we bought this building a couple years ago and it clearly has always been, we've been here 17 years. As I drive by, it's always been some commercial below with the big, beautiful windows. And we thought it was just a really cool historic building. It has, I think, the tastiest spring in Manitou, and we've tried to work with the mineral springs to always keep that available to tourists. And then when the conditional use went away, we can't put anything in the bottom units. And I don't think that's the look we want for that beautiful historic building. Ruxton is historically kind of a tough place to find tenants. It's just a tough location, and with all the, all this, whatever they're doing under the streets coming these next years, like it's just a tough place for us to get tenants into those units. So we're just asking for any help from the city to make it easy to get really cool businesses to either offer something for tourists or the community in there, knowing that it's a tough place. I think with all the development proposed and all the traffic that's going to be changed or whatever, it's hard. Parking there is hard. So any help from you guys would really help, I think, bring the building alive, which would be our intention in that beautiful historic building.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Yeah, the one thing I'm curious about is, that's traditionally been a problem or a challenge with this building is trash.
Oh,
you know, the footprint, I guess you don't have a lot of space. I don't know how, if you've,
Oh, do you mean people dropping trash or?
no, actually storage of the trash. Like this came up, I think about 3 years ago when there was there was a request to increase the density to have 2 units upstairs and so.
Okay, so I don't know of that being an issue. I'm certainly happy to address that. We don't want to have a trashy property, but
Yeah.
what I believe my manager has done is there's one of the tenants pulls the trash bin out and then he moves it back into that because there's a kind of a center unit
Mhm.
between the two tenants below where the fountain, you know, the Twin Springs and everything is. And I thought he was tucking them in back there. But speaking of trash, as of like 2 days ago, when I walked by, there's a huge green trash bin in front of the building now. So I thought that's what you were going to say about trash. That I didn't think looked awesome, but if
Yeah.
it's necessary, I guess it can stay.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the main concern is that,
Yeah, having a process for the
Yeah.
trash, totally.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks. You can. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Are you taking responsibility for the springs itself?
Yes, and actually that's a situation because that was one of the only springs that the historic the Mineral Springs Foundation couldn't redo the entire well. So that's a bit risky for us, but it's the best we can do. I think they had to like remove the whole building to redo the well. So they didn't redo it. So that is still in there, but the spring is flowing and the people love it. So yeah, I have to pay a lot of insurance for that possibility. I'm taking any solutions if anyone has one, because I would love to fix that problem.
Great. Thank you.
Speaking of
Anything
the
else?
font, so then the font, though, we don't manage, right? That's the Mineral Spring Foundation. And there is like water bounces off that font and frequently has like an ice skating rink and right in front of the font. So I just emailed them yesterday and they already responded. They're working with the city to redo something about the font so it doesn't sprinkle onto the sidewalk. So that piece, we work in partnership with the city.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Well, you can,
Am I dismissed?
you're dismissed for now. If we have more questions, we'll drag you back.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, now the public comment period is open for this hearing. If anybody'd like to speak, step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Howdy folks, Megan Day, 12 Capitol Hill Avenue, Manitou Springs. I am here to support Cassandra and the rezone. It is forced upon her because of the new land use code and costing her thousands of dollars to ensure that she can have a commercial tenant with a viable business in her property. So I want to just be here to support her. And we have a Ruxton corridor that is very vacant right now. And anything we can do to liven it up and get tenants in there, commercial and residential, is supported by me, a neighbor. Thanks.
What's costing her thousands of dollars?
The rezone process.
Costs thousands of dollars?
Yep. It used to be a conditional use permit under the former zoning code, and now that the zoning code does not allow her to get a conditional use permit for a commercial use of that property, it's costing her $2,000 to go through this rezone to have a viable commercial business.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, on the bright side that she won't have to go through a conditional use for every new tenant. So hopefully it'll even out in the end. It'd be a little smoother process. And there are no parking requirements. Minimum parking, so, okay. Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah Van Dimwagen for the record. So the cost under the previous fee schedule as well as the new fee schedule, a conditional use permit and a rezoning are the same. So the rezoning would resolve the issue for all tenants as long as the tenant was permitted in the particular zone district. So instead of multiple applications for conditional use, we're fixing it one time with the rezoning.
Thank you. David?
I have to admit, as a member of the community, there's something that doesn't feel quite right about our changing the rules by changing the code and then charging that kind of fee to bring it into compliance. Does the city, does the planning department administratively and or does the city council have any other options?
So this is, so there always has been an application fee for both rezoning and conditional uses. They have historically been the same fee. So under the previous fee schedule, rezoning was $1,000, as was conditional uses. The new fee just accounts for inflation, but they are still the same at $1,090. As far as changing the rules, so the previous zoning code allowed for individuals to ask for land uses which were not permitted in their zone district. It was a way of kind of circumventing what the zone district was intended for. So you could have commercial land uses in the residential zone district. So this isn't necessarily a change in the rules, but rectifying what it should have been zoned to begin with at the same cost as all conditional uses would have been anyway.
Well, again, whose responsibility was it in terms of not zoning it properly in the first place?
That's a great question for whoever decided the zone district in the 1970s.
Yeah, but we have to deal with it now. The planning department has to deal with it today. And most importantly, the owner has to deal with it when, from my point of view, she's obviously trying to be compliant and protect an asset that contributes to the community and particularly the historic district. So again, something doesn't feel right here to me.
David, let's just step back for a minute. With the previous code, every time there was a new use, every time there was a new resident for one of the commercial spaces, they would have had to go through the process of getting a conditional use and paying the fee. That's no longer necessary. So we've actually made it smoother and cleaner. So I think that's the point, that we've always, even if it, I mean, the fact that it was rezoned differently is really not the planning department's responsibility. It was, it was an artifact of a existing condition. And we've actually made it a lot smoother. So in the future, there won't be a need for paying a fee, whether it's $1,000 or $2,000 each time there's a new use. And in addition, the minimum parking requirement has been eliminated. So I think, it's a win for the property going forward. And I don't think, again, we're working on the code. We can't adjudicate this. We can't direct staff to do anything other than what's in the code. And, I think we're actually moving forward in a positive way.
I understand that. I can recall, I'm just trying to find out what the options are. I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody or say what, and at this point, I don't even know what would be right to do. I'm just saying it gives me concern. And I noted in the past that when we changed the requirements for short-term rentals, we in effect grandfathered in all the ones who had been adopted before. And I believe that had things to do with important aspects of carrying the permit with the property. So my concern still is still there, and I'd still like to know what the city's options are.
So I can speak just really broadly about how some other communities go about that process. So one is to do a legislative rezoning. That means in that case, the city is the applicant, so they bear the fee cost, and they would be the ones presenting on behalf of the property owner. But typically, those are not politically very popular because a lot of property owners feel that something's happening to their property against their will. And so certainly after a big land use code rewrite like this, it's an option, and some communities do it. They basically say, okay, let's rethink the zoning map at this point. Now that we have new districts and new procedures, let's rethink how to do this, kind of like taking a step back and how we would apply this fresh. But I've definitely seen some political backlash as far as that goes when property owners get a notice basically saying your property is a part of a rezoning. And so communities typically choose not to do that. Manitou chose not to do that and instead leave it up to the property owner as an option. So that's one common way, or not a common way, but one way to kind of get around this issue when you have a land use code rewrite. The other is to waive administrative fees, but again, not a very common option either, but two options I've seen.
And who in the city has the option to waive a fee like that?
So you'd need to do it legislatively. It needed to be a legislative policy of the city council. So what you do is you pass a resolution saying that these fees will not apply in these circumstances. And so it's a resolution passed by the council.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, any more discussion?
Sure, I have my hand raised. This is Harper Johnson. So I think there's some confusion maybe in what I hear David's question being. This wasn't necessarily rezoned from a commercial use property in the first place. It was zoned, at least if I read the document correctly, it was already zoned residential, and they were having a special use to make it a commercial property on the ground floor. I support what the request is, but it's not as if the city in the new code changed the zoning of this property. They just disallowed the temporary or the conditional use request. And so we're actually trying to make this a permanent change instead of a continued application after application for a conditional use. So David, I don't think that we changed zoning as much as we disallowed what they were allowed to do to get around the current zone for what their property was. Is that correct, Hannah?
Thank you, Commissioner Harper. That is correct.
Thank
Or
you.
Johnson, I apologize.
That's all right. Thank you.
Okay. So would anybody entertain a motion at this time or other discussion?
I would do that, but I'm not exactly sure how. Are we motioning on both of these at the same time?
So my preference is when you have two different sets of criteria to do the motions separately. So I would prefer them to be two separate motions for each individual application.
Okay. I would, if you want to make a motion, I would recommend doing the rezoning first.
All right, then I'm not exactly sure on the wording. So I would motion that we accept the rezoning of 121 Ruxton.
Yeah, this would be a recommendation to council.
Okay.
Okay. And with any staff findings on that.
And with any staff findings on that.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion, a second. All those in favor? just raise a hand. Okay, and that passes unanimously. And so the other item on the table is a minor development.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, I'll motion the second what is it called?
Minor 2301.
A minor development plan at 121 Ruxton Avenue.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? And then we can vote on that. All in favor? Okay, so that passes and good luck. I hope all the Ruxton activity doesn't hobble your business.
Thanks for taking care of our fountain.
No, you have to stay here till midnight tonight. Okay, so we'll move on to other business. Next is an annual election of officers. We should have done this in January, but we didn't have a meeting, and last month we just let it slip, so. First would be to nominate a chair.
I'll make a motion to nominate Alan Delwich as chair.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, then I guess we'll vote on that. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And we next would be to nominate a co-chair.
I'll nominate Mike Casey to be co-chair.
I'll second that. Any other nominations? Okay, then let's vote.
Can I just say something before you vote?
No,
I'll
Yeah.
only accept if Alan is never absent.
sadly, I'm absent most of the day, sometimes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, so let's vote on that. I guess that's unanimous, okay. Next item is land use and development code and short-term council action and updates.
Great, thank you, Chair Delwich and new Chair Delwich. So just as a quick update, our zoning code did become effective last Wednesday. So we are officially using it. Our staff had a little shredding party of the old zoning code the night before. In addition to the zoning code becoming effective, the short-term rental moratorium was also lifted the same morning. So we did receive a few applications for short-term rentals, which will be in front of the Planning Commission in April, and we'll go from there. But those are my updates for the commission.
Great. Mike,
Hannah, have you received any feedback on short-term rentals, specifically having the owner live there? Was any comments?
So we have received a few anecdotal comments, mostly what you would expect, that it's a little bit of an onerous requirement. But no one has brought it forward to the city council for them to potentially want to reconsider. But those are comments that we've heard and we've expected.
okay, Mike, you had a suggestion you mentioned before the meeting.
Right. I was just thinking about the special meeting that we had and the sudden change in the weather. And I thought it would be a good idea for you guys or Alan or both to have our cell numbers so you can do a mass text versus an email.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We can, I believe I have, or the city clerk has cell phone numbers on file. So I'll send, actually, if I send a text out, a mass text, is that a meeting? Okay, how would that work?
So you can send out the mass text, just none of you please reply to it. If you do want to reply to it, do it in a separate message, just directly to Hannah.
Great. So I'll send
a
that
plan.
one mass text so you guys have my work cell phone number, but do not reply to me or do not hit reply all, do a separate message to me.
Okay, and then also 2 meetings ago, we talked about somebody was going to contact the city's PR person about the public comment on non-agenda items as an option now.
Right, so I did bring that to his attention. It is in the queue of announcements that we're going to make. I'll follow up with him to see where we are in the queue and I'll update the commission.
And then Austin, can you just give us the Reader's Digest version on how to handle that part of the meeting?
Yep, I advise you, don't say anything. So I would just let them do their complete spiel. And for 3 minutes, and once they're 3 minutes up, say thank you for your comment. So I had never advised any exchange for a whole host of legal issues. So even if they're pointing fingers at one of you or asking questions of one of you or all of you, I just say thank you for your comment. And if you wanted to go a step further, the chair could say, we'll discuss it with staff and have someone get back to you, but I don't advise anything further.
Good.
Thank you. Good question.
Okay. Anything else? And I guess we are adjourned.
Have a good night, Harper.
Thank you. Good night.